Welcome to this seminar on using your hobby to disciple. And maybe you're wondering why I have such a weird background to where I'm speaking from. So this is my garage, and it's a big part of my hobby. I have tools and my old car here. And so I thought it would be appropriate for me to do this video from the garage, because this is where I do a lot of my hobby with young people. So today I'm going to speak a little bit about how I do this and the importance of using your hobby and discipleship. And also we'll give a little bit of time for you to think about how you can use your hobby to disciple younger people, or anybody really. It can be somebody your own age as well. No matter what stage of life you're in, whether you're older or younger, your favorite hobby can actually open up opportunities to share the gospel and to disciple other people. Because more than likely, there's somebody else who's also interested in what you're interested in. So everybody around the world needs to hear about Jesus. And so why not use something that you are already enjoy and are good at, and somebody else enjoys, in order to share the gospel with them. Now, commonly, this is happening through, like, in Compass, we do fusion or edge, so you do sports or music together. Those are some of the common things. Or we have English camps in the summer, so people come and they actually do a hobby together. They learn English together, which is some people's hobby. But a lot of times we don't think about other hobbies also being able to be used for this purpose. So kind of 3 points I wanted to throw out the beginning that are really important for us to think about. And that is, followers of Christ are called to be his representatives in the world. So we as followers of Christ, we're called to be Christ's representatives. So in Romans 10:14 through 15, it says, "How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching it to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news." So when we look at the Bible, it tells us that actually people don't know about Christ's love for them if we don't go. If we don't make some effort to go out and to share that good news and be involved in the world. One of the easiest ways to be involved in the world is through hobbies. People won't always come to church. Church can be intimidating for some people, but people will always get connected into a hobby that they enjoy. Another point is that each of us have unique gifts and abilities and passions. In 1 Peter 4:8 through 11, it says, "Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sin. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength that God provides, so that in all things God may be praised. Through Jesus Christ, to him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen." So in Scripture, he talks about using the gifts and the talents that he's given us for his glory. And so if God's given you the talent to do something, to fix something, to build something, to create cool coffee mixtures, to play music, whatever it is, God's given you some kind of talent in that, and he wants you to use that for his kingdom. And a number of years ago, I was thinking about the hobbies that I had in the States. So when I grew up, I had model railroad, Blachiki. And I was building this since I was 5 years old. My dad bought me my first train set, and I got a little board. We went to the OB, and we got a little board, and I put my track around it, and I started going out in the woods and finding little, like, branches and little weeds that I could paint and make them look like trees. And I love doing that. I love creating, and I experience, when I create, I experience God's heart when he created the world. And when I was here in Slovakia, I didn't have that hobby anymore because it was all in the United States. And I felt kind of guilty, like, oh, I don't know if I should be really like investing in a hobby when, there's so much else to do around me. There's so much work to be done. There's so many people that need to hear the good news. Why waste time on a hobby? But then I was reading a book that was talking about how it's good for us as humans to put our hands to work doing something. It's good for us to have a hobby. And sorry, there's some noises behind me. Sprawiam video. And there's some boys that always come by the garage and want to help somehow or talk to me. So I had a friend who was talking about this, and he was like, why not use your hobby? Why not enjoy the work of your hands and do something? And you can actually use it for the kingdom. I have a good friend who lives in the Czech Republic, and he does all kinds of things. He goes paragliding. He has a motorcycle, drives through the mountains. He has a drone that he got, and he's constantly going around with young guys, and they're flying the drone in cool places and making videos, and they're snowboarding together, and they're doing all kinds of things together. And I realized, man, this guy does all of his hobbies, and yet at the same time, there's all these young guys around him who are growing in their faith, and they're being challenged to be men of God. I know there's some ladies here. I'm speaking from the perspective of a male because that's what I'm in, and I work with young guys, but just translate it in your mind to what you enjoy doing. And so as I thought about that, I go, okay, let's try this. So I actually got some wood. I went out and bought my first European model train, and I started building a track. And I found out that there was a guy that really likes creating, and he likes making little houses and all this kind of stuff. And so I said, hey, you want to come over and you want to work on the track with me? And so he came over, and we would talk about different ideas of how we could make it, the design, and where we could have tracks go, and what kind of buildings could be where, which was a lot of fun for me. But during it, I was able to ask some questions, see where he was at spiritually, and actually encourage him in a lot of ways. And I realized, wow, this actually works, that you can disciple using your hobby. So the first thing was that we're called to share Christ with others. The second thing was that we have abilities and talents that we can use for the kingdom of God, and we should be using for his glory. Sorry, am I speaking too quickly for anybody? Okay. Sorry, I get excited and I speak pretty quickly. So, and the third thing is the things we love can be the very things that connect us with people who have never heard God's love and forgiveness. In John 4:35, it says, don't you have a saying, it's still 4 months until the harvest? I tell you, open your eyes and look, for the fields are ripe for harvest. There are people all over who are ready to hear the gospel. They're ready to grow in their faith, and it's ready. So why not connect? I love that hobbies can connect you with someone younger than you, but they can also connect you with someone your age. When I was about 2 years ago, I was meeting with one of the guys that I disciple, and I was challenging him to share Christ with his friends at school. And he's like, Josh, you don't understand how hard it is to share the gospel with someone my age. And I was like, yeah, man, but that's what God's called us to. And then he asked me, so who your age are you sharing the gospel with? And I was like, okay. Yeah, you got me there. Yeah, I work with teenagers a lot, but I don't know if I know anybody my age who doesn't know the Lord. And so I started thinking about that a lot and praying, like, God, bring someone into my life that I can start building into, that I can start sharing the gospel with that's my age. Well, you saw the Volkswagen Beetle behind me. I also have a Volkswagen bus that I've been working on, and there's a guy in our town who works on buses. He rebuilds buses, and that's like his job is rebuilding buses, rebuilding motorcycles, and he does it out of his house. So you don't have to have any mechanic's license or anything to go there and help him. So I just started taking my van there, my bus there, and started working there. And it's been a great opportunity to actually get to know him. And I got to know him so well that we actually had him and his wife and little daughter come to our wedding. If you don't know the woman, beautiful woman there, Alice, with the orange sweatshirt on, is my wife. And so we invited him and his wife and child to the wedding. And we've developed this friendship basically through a hobby that we have in common. And I've had the opportunity to share the gospel with him. We've talked about church. We've talked about the things that maybe he doesn't totally agree with. I've actually gotten to meet his friends. And actually I've started to develop some other friends that are my age around. And so I love that you can connect with younger people, but you can also connect with people your age in this area. Couple of the things I shared with you that I started doing, working on the model railroad with young guys. One of the other things, I love music, and I actually got a small mixing desk, and I had a couple guys in our youth who wanted to record music. So this is the first 2 or 3 years that I was here. I had no clue how to mix music, but I went out and got this little soundboard. I went online, I watched lots of videos on YouTube, and I learned how to mix some music to a certain level. And I was able to meet with some of these guys, and we were able to record some music together, which was really fun for me. Another thing that I've started working on is on, like I said, the Volkswagens, old cars. I also don't know anything about repairing vehicles. It just was something that sounded fun to me. And I said, well, why not try it? So I got an old car, started working on it, and I have generally, like every other week, I'll have a guy come and we'll work on something on one of the cars. We'll have great conversations together. And especially, I don't know how it is for girls, but I know for guys, we're not very good at the whole sitting and staring at each other and talking about feelings. And so it's always great to do something with your hands and have conversations. And I actually find that a lot of young guys will open up and share a lot more with me when their guard is down because they're working on something and they don't realize they're not supposed to share their feelings on something. So that's a little advantage for guys there. I know girls are a little bit better at sharing their feelings and emotions on different things, so that might be easier. Another thing I've started to get into, because working on cars, I wanted to start building a kitchen for our bus. And so I've got some saws and I've started working on woodworking. And so it's fun because it's something that I enjoy doing, something that I would do anyways. And I can invite young people into it, and I can invite people my age into it. So maybe you already have a hobby. I hope you have a hobby. If you don't, you need to get a hobby, because I think it's really life-giving to have something that you do outside of work, outside of school, whatever your normal responsibilities are. It's something that's relaxing for you. It's fun, and it's creative. I think most hobbies, they're creative in some way. No matter what you're doing, you're thinking through, you're creating something in your mind. And so couple easy steps to get started. One is pray about it. What hobby might God want you to pursue if you don't already have a hobby? Or what hobby do you have right now that would be really easy to connect someone else into? Think about your natural talents, such as athleticism, artistic ability. Think about special interests. Do you like doing outdoor sports, skiing, rock climbing? Do you like working with your hands? Do you like sewing? Do you like painting? Think about the things, scrapbooking, camping, whatever. Think about the things that you enjoy doing, or maybe even something you would like to start doing. Pray about who might also be interested in this. Maybe you'll start a hobby because someone else is interested, like I did mixing the music. There were some guys that were interested, so I became interested in it. Or maybe you have something that you're interested in and someone else is also interested in that. Or it might be that you actually get someone else interested in what your hobby is. And so pray about that. Ask the Lord, what can I use for your kingdom? What can I use to reach other people for your glory and to share the good news with them? And then I would say the second easy step or second step to doing this is get equipped. Get the things you need, the resources you need to do it well. So if it's a new hobby for you that you don't know well, educate yourself on how to do it. Watch videos, read a book. If it's something you already know how to do, think through like, how could I do this with somebody else? Or how could I teach someone how to do this hobby? You know, so I know Sean's here, he plays piano. So it's not hard for him to play piano, but he may not naturally think about how to teach someone else how to play piano. So you kind of have to think about that, like what did I need when I first started, and how do I teach that to somebody else? Another thing you need to get equipped in is you need to have materials prepared. If you're interested, I can send my email at the end and you can ask me. I have a list of 100 questions you can ask someone. I won't find it now on the thing. I just thought of this now. But 100 questions you can ask people. And they're like, some of them are shallow. Some of them are really deep questions. So some of them might be like, you know, what's your favorite sport? And some of them might be like, where do you think you'll go after you die? So it can go like really deep and level. It's great to have those questions. Just keep a couple of them in the back of your mind and go, okay, I'm just going to see when we're doing this hobby where I could ask one of these questions. And even think about the person that you're with and what kind of questions would work for them. Have a tool like in Compass, we have Look and Seek. They're both some tools that you can get. Look is a 4-part study. And sorry, I hope the weed whacker behind me is not so loud. I didn't think about that coming down to the garage. But Look is a 4-part study, and it actually helps people ask questions about what they think about God, what they think about afterlife, spirituality, and it's a great tool to use. I have one guy who we started working on the car, and I said, hey, let's work on the car, but we're going to take a break every time we're working on it, and we're going to look through this Look study. And so we would take a break, we would talk through it, and then we would just go back to working. And sometimes more conversation would happen. Sometimes it wouldn't. We would just finish where we were. And actually, as a result of that, that guy last year at our camp gave his life to Christ. And he said, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot throughout the year when we were meeting, and I'm ready. I'm ready to give my life to Christ. And so get equipped, have questions to ask, have some kind of study that you can use. We have a lot of resources in Compass, but I know that a lot of your churches, your church denominations have resources that you can use. So make sure you have something, because one of the hard things I would say about using your hobby in this way is sometimes you can get so much into the hobby that you forget to ask questions, and you forget to reach out to them spiritually. And so it's good to have that prepared. It's good to pray beforehand and say, like, today I really want to like hit this topic with this young person or with this friend of mine. Another thing is you can get involved. So I said there's this guy that does Volkswagen buses. I went to him. I got connected with him. Maybe you have a hobby that, let's say fitness, and you are into CrossFit. Go join a CrossFit club. Go there, work out, and be intentional with the relationships that you start there. Maybe you're interested in music. Go join a choir. Go join some kind of club. It's a great way, if you're not already connected with people, to get connected with people that you could be sharing the gospel with, that you could be building relationships with. Yeah, and then and get whatever kind of materials you can to connect with people. During this time, we're doing a lot online. Thank the Lord, it seems like things are opening up more and more in Slovakia, and we can do stuff in person. But you can even connect with people online. Find out if there's some kind of clubs or some kind of way that you can get connected online with different places. The next thing is initiate relationships. So it's not enough, like I said, to just go and do that hobby. You have to initiate relationships there. You don't just go, let's say you go to a CrossFit club, you don't just go there, do the fitness, and then leave. You actually have to initiate relationships. Maybe invite someone out for a coffee another day or for whatever, and start to build those relationships. It's hard, especially here in Slovakia. I would say it's not natural to just start a relationship with somebody out in public. But also, it's not natural to share the gospel, and what God calls us to is not natural. He calls us to go out into the world to preach the good news so that people can hear it. And I think sometimes we also get caught in our culture and like, well, it's not normal to just start talking to someone that I don't know. But how are they going to hear the gospel if we don't talk to them? You remember that verse? Like, how are they going to know if no one preaches the word? And how is someone going to preach the word if they don't go? If they don't go out? So I think this is a big thing, is we have to initiate relationships, and we have to lean in the relationships, and we have to be awkward. We have to lean into the awkward, and it gets less awkward as you go. Naturally, for me, it's a little easier because everything's awkward for me. I live in a different country than I grew up in, but also it can be awkward for those of you who grew up here, or for Sean in the U.S., where he grew up as well. The next thing I would say is recruit others. Especially if it's some kind of hobby that can have more people in it, find other people who are interested, and maybe you have another adult in your church or a leader in your church who's interested in the same thing. Pull them alongside and say, hey, let's do this intentionally. Let's do this hobby, and let's build into these other people who are coming to check this out. So cool. So I want you to take a couple of minutes, and I have 3 questions for you. So I want you to just work through these questions. And then, Mikesh, I don't know if it's possible to have people respond. I would love to hear what people are thinking from these questions. The first question is, what do I have that I can do? What kind of hobby or interest do I have that I can do with others? The second question is, who can I bring into this hobby? Who can I invite? Or where can I go to meet people who also are interested in this hobby? And then the third question might take a little bit longer. What steps do I need to do to prepare to do this hobby with someone else? So take a couple of minutes to think about that, write down your answers, and then I'm curious to see what some of the ideas people have are. I see Lucka, Darius, Daniel. All right. I don't know if Lenka's got it yet, but looks like everybody else has. Would somebody like to share?
So me and my brother, we like skill toys. So it maybe could be possible to do skill toys, or teach other people how to do skill toys. So that's maybe what I can do. Maybe who can I take into hobby, or how to get know more people in that hobby. So there are contests, for example, yo-yo contests. So we can like meet other people that actually are in those communities, and we can kind of maybe try to build some relationships with them. And then what steps I need to do to be able to share it, maybe get better in it, get more confident, and maybe share some videos maybe on Instagram and see if anyone would be interested into doing something like that.
That's a great idea to do it on Instagram. That's a source I didn't think about. Yeah, so thinking about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. I don't know. I'm not too hip on all of the new apps out there that you can use, but Yeah, that's a great way to connect with people in that. So cool. Who else? Sean, do you want to share with us?
Yeah, I was just actually getting ready to unmute my microphone. um, One thing that I already like doing is like just taking hikes, and there's like a really great park nearby my house that I really enjoy going to. Um, and I think hiking is kind of an easy hobby to sort of link to this because it's just natural to talk while you're doing the hike. Like there's not much else to do, you know, it's pretty easy to start up conversation. But I think really maybe the harder part is like just initiating. And I always, like, anytime someone invites me, like, oh, hey, do you want to go on a hike or just meet up? I'm always like, oh yeah, that's like, that would be great. And so I don't know why I'm so hesitant to just initiate that and ask it of someone, even if they're, you know, maybe not a super close friend. Um, it seems like a pretty universal thing that people enjoy. So I was thinking of like people, who can I bring in? Like um, a lot of my Butler classmates who didn't get to kind of say goodbye and you know, like sort of have a farewell at the end of the school year. I have a feeling some of those people might be interested in just like meeting up and catching up and that kind of thing. So that might be an easy way to connect.
Cool. Yeah, I like there's two key things you said in there that I've learned along the way. And one is if your hobby doesn't naturally bring in conversation, like for instance, if you're playing, like, let's say basketball or floorball or some like competitive sport, sometimes there's not as much conversation happening when you're going. So you have to be really intentional with, how do I actually have conversation? How do I build relationships? Or sometimes I know like in online gaming, it can get really intense and then you're not really having any deep conversations at that moment. But you can think about like, what are the times that I can do that? Is there times outside of it or breaks in what I'm doing that could connect? So that, and then the other thing that I think is kind of funny with this video that I'm doing is there's a lot of noise around me. And I found that discipling through your hobby has a lot more distractions than if you just do it like you have a small group or you just meet in one place and just talk. Because there's a very uncontrolled environment when you're doing a hobby. It doesn't always go the way you expect it to. But that also brings up a lot of opportunities for discipleship and for sharing the gospel. So yeah. Any of the girls, we've heard from a couple of guys. Do any of the girls want to share? No. Okay, no problem. So Zach in the middle here, well, I guess he's in the middle for me. I don't know where he is for everybody else, but he was my roommate for a number of years before I got married. And I really love how we would bounce off ideas a lot with each other about discipleship through hobbies. And so I just wanted you all to hear some of the hobbies that he does and how he connects with young people and disciples through that, because they're a little bit different than mine.
So I also have a old car like Josh, but I don't use it so much for discipling and hanging out with students. Probably because I just get frustrated and hit it and don't know what to do. So, but one of the big things that I started this past year was art hangouts. I love doing different types of art. Specifically right now I'm working a lot on illustrating and some different ideas I have for a book and whatever else that's coming out. Before that I was doing leather work, like journal work and stuff like that, designing these leather journals and different things. And while I was working through art stuff, I was just listening to a podcast from some artists, professional artists, and one of their challenges was like, you should create an art group like to hang out with, to bounce ideas off of and so on. So actually starting this kind of outreach, hangout, developing relationships with students things started from selfish motives of me going, I want an art community, right? Like I enjoy doing art. And if you think of like when I thought about it more, like a lot of artists, I'm quite different than a lot of artists, but a lot of artists, like they're by themselves all the time working on their art. They're being very hard and critical of themselves. A lot of times they're not in good places because there's nobody there with them and they're just alone, and then they're hating on their own work, right? They're not good enough. They're comparing themselves to everyone in the work that they do, but they enjoy the hobby, like, or career if it's that. And I was thinking, I was like, well, like we hit big ones, like we do music, like we do sports. I'm like, but like those already create a group, and artists like need a group to be with. And so I started out of selfish motives, but then I was like, hey, I'm opening it up. I'm going to do an art hangout for anyone who wants to come. And it's been students that have come the majority of the time. And I like, hey, you guys can come work on whatever art you want, whatever kind of art. Like you want to work on leather stuff? I've got leather stuff if you want to learn to do that. You want to draw? Okay, sweet, come draw. You want to come write a poem or whatever? Like, come do that. Now, what's happened is majority of the time it's just people who come and they just draw and sketch, which is totally fine to have that. So for me, it's not so much discipleship at the moment. It's a lot of outreach and just developing relationships with the students to go further. And because I'm connecting with them on this level that a lot of people don't, because it's not like, you might have an artist friend, right? But like it's not often you come across like all these people who are artists, right? You might come off a bunch of people that play sports or a bunch of people that do music. But a lot of times when I come across art, it's kind of a smaller community. So to get those people together is great. Some of them know each other. Some of them are from the school. Some of them are not from the school. Some of them did go to my school, and then now they go to another school and they invited friends from that, which is awesome. And I just have it at my apartment. And actually with the new apartment that I have, I've even set stuff up to where I can do hangouts like that, to where I can invite people over. Like I specifically thought that through of how I designed things, why I wanted it to be comfortable, why I even chose the lighting and stuff that I did specifically. Like I have lights that I can switch from warm lighting to cool lighting, because when you're doing art and you want to see the right colors, you want cool lighting. You don't want warm lighting because it throws all your colors off. So even thinking through that, one of the big things I love doing is having supplies and resources for them for that hobby. Like I like over here back behind me on this shelf it's not a ton, but art books are a little expensive. But it's all like teaching books or like art of the movie and so long. Like it's all these different resources that they have. Plus they can use any of the markers, any of the watercolors, any of the paper I have. I keep those things for them so that when they come, they can also work on their hobby. And when I'm opening up my stuff to them, that's not just them borrowing. That's me going, hey, like, I trust you. Use these things that I spent good money on because I have good quality stuff for doing art. And a lot of times it takes them by surprise. They're like, really? I can use your like $8 markers? like, yes, you can. Like, for one marker, $8. Like, yes, feel free. Like, this is a place for you to hang out and do this. And what happens is a lot of times you end up having conversations. You'd be surprised how many conversations pop up while you're just talking about art. Sometimes we ended up talking about anime or different arts and we don't even draw. We just end up talking the whole time. Like, and a lot of it is they just want to hang out and be in a place where they have like-minded people in some things, but also we bounce ideas off each other, and it's great. Like I had the last art hangout I had 6 to 7 students, and I think they were here from 2 p.m. till about, I think the last one left at 8:30. Like 6.5 hours of kids just hanging out, working on art. Another one really shortly, another one I do with a student that I'm about to do a look with starting tomorrow. If you know what that is, it's a walkthrough about the gospel and stuff, is I play video games. Like I play Warzone, I play Call of Duty, I play League of Legends, like, and I just hop on and play with them. And one, it keeps me accountable to make sure I'm not getting too angry at the game. Two, it's also like an opportunity for me to just develop that relationship. Like, we're not always having super serious talks, but it leads into that later on. And it's the same with the art stuff. We may not have this, but they know I'm there for them. And they know that I'm somebody that has similar mindsets, or I'm just open and honest with them about stuff while we have these times together. So I love it. It's awesome.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, hopefully that also gave some other ideas to you. I love how Zach creates the atmosphere. And maybe that sounds like a lot to you. For me, I'm not really great with a lot of people. I'm good with one-on-one. So I tend to invite 1 or 2 people over. Zach's very outgoing, and he gets along with a lot of people at once. So also think about that, like how do you connect with people? If you're really good with lots of people, then think about how you can open up to more. If you're good one-on-one, then do that through your hobby. But the great thing is, it's so much fun to just do something you love doing and glorify God in it, and someone else can come to know the Lord through it and can grow in their faith. And if we don't have time to talk about it now, but if you've never heard the 5 challenges of Christ that we talk about as compas, you ought to check them out. And it's basically, Christ brought people from unbelief, they didn't know him at all, to maturity in their faith, to repent and believe, and to maturity in their faith. And so you can do that at any point in your hobby. You can have a hobby with someone that doesn't believe in God, and you can have a hobby in someone who's growing in their faith. And either way, you can build into them. And a lot of times it actually grows your own faith as well, because you're actively out there, you're actively sharing your faith with others. And so I think it's just an amazing thing to use your hobby for discipleship, to use your hobby to glorify God, because God gave it to you for a reason. He didn't give it to you only to please yourself. He gave it to you so that you can glorify him in it. And so all we do is for God's glory. We love God and we love others. And so use your hobby to love God and love others. And if you have any questions, I'll write my email here, and you can contact me. And I would love to help or answer any questions, help you troubleshoot. I've made a lot of mistakes doing this. And so maybe you can also learn from my mistakes of things that I've missed in doing this. So I'll just write my email right here, and y'all can use it if you want. Otherwise, I'm really thankful that I was able to speak with you all. Hopefully it was a challenge or an encouragement to you. And just use your hobbies. Glorify God in them. And let's share Christ, because I'll tell you what, Slovakia needs the Lord, and young people and old people and people our age need to hear Christ. And for you also, Sean, in the States, people need to hear Christ. So hear about Christ. So let's do it. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining this call, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and be encouraged.